We've got to take a short break. We'll be back with more of our guest, Richard Dolan, talking about UFOs and the national security state. Don't go away. Coast to Coast AM is coming right back. We're talking about UFOs and the national security state with author Richard Dolan, author and historian, I should say, and we're talking about the possibility of disclosure. Are we about to have it? Has President-elect Obama been briefed already? Maybe the central question is, if he has been briefed, who are the keepers of the secret? Who are these people who have this information? When we come back, we'll put that question to Richard Dolan. Stick around for Coast to Coast AM. Welcome back, everyone. We're talking about the possibility of disclosure with historian Richard Dolan, who wrote UFOs and the National Security State and soon to be Volume 2. Richard, we're talking about this possibility of Obama being briefed and whether or not he would make a statement. It would seem just from a purely political standpoint that it'd be problematic for him to say anything to the public because, there's maybe UFOs is ultimately more important than any of the other stuff on his plate, but it isn't more immediate, is it?
No,
not as immediate as the economic crisis.
That's right. And in the long run for our whole civilization, it's very, very important, but the issue is, will it be manageable? I mean, what will he be able to do about it? I mean, that's the whole thing. Once you acknowledge something publicly, then you have to do something about it. That's the whole thing. And if we're not able to do a lot about it, or if he doesn't feel that he's able to do a lot about it, there may not be much of a motivation for him.
I remember.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, this goes back. I remember I was doing a study of the cattle mutilation controversy back. This continues to go on, of course, but it really became a big thing in the 1970s. And one thing that happened is the state of New Mexico authorized an independent study of the mutilation phenomenon, I think in 1979. And it was not what you would call a very open, detached study, and it concluded almost hardly any analysis at all. That was all done to predators and coyotes and things like that. Despite how inadequate that study was, what could any agency actually do to a phenomenon like that? Admit that there was an unexplained phenomenon at work here that was killing livestock and doing it in almost a terrorist fashion and had never been caught? Because to admit that means now you have to do something about it. And if you're not in a position where you can do something about it, there's very little incentive for these people to admit that there's anything going on. And
I remember talking to Bud Hopkins one time, and he would do this in his presentations. He would do this little faux presentation on the part of the president. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. These aliens are among us. They fly circles around our best warplanes. There's nothing we can do about it. They abduct us. Thank you and good night. Something like that.
Yes, exactly. But, of course, it's never thank you and good night, because then you've got all the follow-up questions. And this is the whole thing. Because once he says that this is so, then you have the door is open. Not just what about abductions, but how much, sir, have you known about this secret? Have you had alien technology? Are there massive underground bases, as have been rumored, that have cost billions and billions and billions of tax dollars that no one has seemed to be able to account for? Now, how much money has all of this secrecy cost, as a matter of fact? And that's just the beginning. How did you fund this? How did you keep this from Congress? And so on and so on. And you think about the example of the Soviet Union. That was a society that was built on over 7 decades of falsehoods, continually modifying their history, airbrushing people out of photographs, and so on. When Gorbachev came into power in 1985, he did so on a platform of openness and restructuring, and it was utterly electrifying. And, of course, within 6 years, the Soviet Union ceased to exist. It wasn't Gorbachev's intention. But the process of reform spiraled out of control, because once you say openness, then suddenly the people in Azerbaijan or in the Baltic states say, hey, great, we don't want to be in your country anymore. Remember, you took us over and we didn't like that. And so you open that door a little bit, and you don't know where the story is going to end. And the same with UFO secrecy. We've now had secrecy on UFOs nearly as long as the history of the Soviet Union, over 60 years. It's a long time. And to undo a secret of that magnitude, dear God, everyone is going to be implicated in this, not just the political structure, but the academic community. The media, the mainstream media is going to be deeply implicated in this. People are going to want to know, where have you guys been? Well, what's obvious is that they've been licking the boots of the people in power and basically having a very incestuous relationship and not doing their job, which is independent analysis. Academia, the same thing. We're going to lose a lot of confidence, I think, as a public in some of our major institutions. And then the political scene, absolutely. Are people really going to believe that the Democrat and Republican Party leadership have been blissfully unaware of what's going on? Or have they just intentionally stuck their head in the sand? Or what happened? It's a failure of leadership. And I really doubt that people are just going to shrug and say, oh, well, you did it for national security. Okay, no problem. I just don't see, maybe some people will, but I think a lot of people won't. And so there probably will be a real political firestorm unless it's handled with just some level of genius that would have to be necessary to rise to the occasion. And
which is why you're guessing that it's not going to happen immediately, that if this guy is the disclosure president, he's going to have to lay the groundwork for it.
Well, I think disclosure is going to happen. It's a paradoxical thing with me because I think it's inevitable that it will happen in the near future only because the process of change in our whole society is going so fast. I mean, this is not 1990s. It's not the 1980s, and it's certainly not 100 years ago. I mean, the process of change is going faster and faster. Our technology is continually changing how we communicate. Something as simple and basic to us now as the Internet, let's keep in mind, was just in its infancy only 20 years ago when the world was a very different place. I don't think in 1988 people could have predicted just how interconnected the world would be in just 20 years. And so that process is not going to stop. And what it will do is it will create instability of various types, political and economic, and it's in periods of instability that accidents can happen. So what I think will happen is that something big unexpectedly is very likely to happen that will force disclosure. So I doubt it's going to happen as a result of a planned process. It could happen, I suppose, but I don't expect that. I expect it will happen as a result of some kind of accident. Maybe something like another Stevensville, Texas type of sighting over a major populated area that is so big, so undeniable that there's just nothing that the powers that be can do about it, and then they have to come clean.
Not necessarily a landing on the White House lawn. I mean, and I asked that question in this context, Richard, is that, it's something that Whitley Strieber once said that, while our government is certainly engaged in a cover-up, the true architects of the secrecy are these other beings, wherever they're from.
Well, I think that's right, because they certainly operate primarily by stealth. They don't appear to be interested in announcing themselves in any kind of measure of equality. I mean, look, if we were studying gorillas in the African lowlands or highlands, it's not like we're going to walk up to the lead dominant male, the silverback male, and shake his hand and say, hey, my name's George, my name's Rich, we'd like to establish relations with your tribe. So they may not look at us on quite the way that we would like them to look at us. They may look at us as farm animals. They may look at us as interesting little creatures who are on an interesting technological path, but maybe not necessarily as equals. And so, seeing them landing on the White House lawn, a la The Day the Earth Stood Still, or other movies like that, probably won't be the case. Now, they may have. There are rumors. These rumors have existed for years of things like a human-alien deal,
right,
or their deals covertly done. I think this is possible. None of us know for sure. I wouldn't rule it out on a very covert basis. Maybe the kind of a deal that Western imperialist powers traditionally would have with leaders of third world, less technologically advanced nations, where you go in, you cut a deal with the guy in charge, he gets a lot of money, you get to have access to his raw materials on the cheap, and those players are happy. The vast majority of the people, on the other hand, kind of get screwed over. That model could very well be a type of model that exists on